Arigatou. And settling into Zazen. If we're to kind of boil it down to two qualities, two essences, the settling and an opening. So two qualities happening at the same time. Settling, or often we'll use the phrase weight at our side. And opening. We have to do with that alignment, letting posture and the body shape be the result of the skeletal structure being tall and open. A little bit more internal than that is allowing space in the joints, allowing space between the vertebrae and actually eventually all the joints itself. So spacious body structure. So physically, literally physically taking up more space, not by trying to be puffy and big, but by allowing room in the joints and actually expanding space in the joints. So if we're to kind of boil it down to a couple different terms or essences, settling, and then open. So if we just kind of meditate, ruminate on those two, even those two words, and see if there's a sense of quality to those two words, settling and opening. And then we can have that relate to the breath specifically as well. Settling to the breath. So specifically what that addresses is moving the breath from being uptight, high in the chest, a lot of tension breathing, letting the breath literally physically settle into the abdomen, and then releasing the abdomen, again, literally letting the abdomen take up more space, or the breathing, the physical movement of breath, allow that to take up more space. Settling and then, of course, our job is to maintain those qualities, even as we go into standing, even as we go into movement, even as we go into very dynamic, intense movement, keeping those qualities, settling and opening. And, or at the very least, noticing when we diverge from one of those qualities. So we notice that, oh, I'm not settled, I've come up, or I'm not open or opening, I've restricted or contracted. At the win, at the victory, oh, I notice when I've split away from that quality, I've diverged from that quality, and then I slow down, readjust to get that quality, that essence back. Settling and opening. Let me know if you have any questions with this. And again, it's not just like a part of a warm-up, it's the internal training, it's really the training of the internal martial art. And we do our best to take that into everything else we do for the rest of class. And again, hopefully, ideally beyond class. Again, noticing when we diverge away from a settling process or diverge away from a opening. So as we do the simple action of standing up, allow yourself to stay with those qualities, or equally valuable when you pull away from one of those qualities. So let's stand up slowly, settling, staying open. Noticing what you have in your standing or what you've lost in the standing, and then using awareness and attention to bring it back. And a little physical warm up, but again, time to time, moment to moment, remind yourself of those two essences, two qualities. You start with a little bit of shaking, shake the hands like you're shaking water off the hands. Let your knees be a little bit bent. And once you start to relax and release, you start to unify the entire body so that by the mere shaking of the hands, you're actually rocking your entire body. Your heels are slightly rocking up and down off the ground. But even the shaking of the hands themselves, don't let that be a tight muscular action like this. Let it be a result of gravity. Continual dropping, continual falling, dropping, dropping. So again, even that can be refined so we're not overdoing. Dropping, dropping, and then you find a unity, a rhythm, a holism, where you're literally rocking the body right down to the heels. And again, make sure those knees are bent a little bit. And quick reminder, some of the other details, lower back is flat. Then we're one unit as opposed to being segmented. And then turning at the waist. I call this the human sprinkler. Again, try to be relaxed about it. Very helpful technique again is weight underside, right? Weight underside, weight underside, weight underside, weight underside. Release the abdomen. And a little wider, a little deeper, a little horse stance. And then just let the hands just release, so you're just swinging the arms. Let the shoulders go. Again, release the abdomen. Allow your weight to sink into the hip, so you warm up those hips and those legs. Watch out for any bending or leaning that compromises your safety, compromises the pristineness of your physical and energetic shape and structure. Release the abdomen. And if you turn a bit more as you come up on the ball of that foot, you can turn to face the wall behind you and get a little turn, more of a turn in the spine and neck. But try not to tighten up. Keep the weight underside. And gradually winding down. Letting gravity bring you to stillness. Walk your feet in a little bit. Can't keep the knees bent. Roll the shoulders. And feel the spine moving. Undulating the spine. Put your awareness deep into the spine. And rolling the other way. Good. Bring the heels a little closer. Bend the knees. Hip turns. Each hip turn gets a little bigger than the last. And until you're scraping the walls on all sides with your hips. Release the abdomen and breathe. Slowly come back to center stillness. Send the mind the other way. Mind leads the body. Send the mind the other way. Let the body be swept up by that mental vector. Each circle a little bigger than the last. Feel those ball joints being addressed. Feel the internal organs being massaged as we make a bigger hip. And back to center, and do the same motion but with the knees. And supporting the knees, starting small. People get bigger as it feels okay with the knees. Send the mind the other way. And then diverging circles, you can get a little bigger if it feels comfortable. And circles the other way. Now turn sideways so you can see. I'm going to come up by pushing my knees and my hips forward and let that roll up my spine. And I'm going to do that a few more times. I send my hips back and I send my hips forward to roll up through the spine, eventually through the top of the head. So let's get the entire spine moving. Call them spinal waves. Part of the warm up to wake up the spine, keep the spine limber. Good. One foot back. Turn sideways so you can see. Long stance. If you have more flexibility, you can actually turn the back foot so it's straight Usually we have 45 degrees for the back foot. For this, if you have the flexibility, a straight back foot gets more stretch in the Achilles tendon and the calf. Push the hips forward, big arc with the arms, arch you back. Breathing continuously. Big arc forward, energy through the fingertips. Touch the floor, stretch the back of the front leg. Try to keep your body open and released as you stretch. Watch when you're tightening up and constricting in the stretch, you want to open and release into the stretch. Knee down, put the hips forward. And then also a little arch here. Breathing continuously. Okay, now weight underside, push into the ground, pop you up. Pivot for Tenkai. Nice long stance. Push the hips forward through the hand blades. Energize and take a time. Hand blades. Let your body be open and empty so your breath moves through your entire body, even as you stretch. And intending forward. Energy through the fingertips. Stretch the back of the straight front leg. Let your head dangle. Breathe into the belly. And knee down. Push the hips forward. Stretching the front of that hip. And then a little arch. And extend forward. Relax down, press to the ground to be pushed up by the ground. Good. Swinging the arms, releasing the shoulders, picking up a knee. Good. Okay, let's go into some program work. Okay, so we do have a new person on the video today. So we're going to start with some basic movement, and we'll go through it quite briefly. Every class we review these, so we're going to touch upon some of these to start with here. So forward stance, weight is slightly forward, feet are flat. Shifting the weight forward and back. Senpai, know to push down the leg to do the weight shift. We want to not throw our mass around and not lean. Just like we're still sitting in Seiza. We're just using the ground to transport our platform. Hands come up, Manucci, come down. So this is basically raising a sword, cutting a sword. So front position here is like an A shape, hand blades forward, energizing the hand blades. So not the palms, hand blades, makes like an A shape. All the works in the legs. Now, senpai, more experienced people, can you let your hips be hanging? Let your hips continue to fall away from the head. Let the hips fall straight away, straight down from the head. That keeps the lower back flat, and it works those legs better and keeps your center of gravity low. Of course, senpai, you want to keep your shoulders down. Roll the elbows forward. That will pull the shoulders down. Switch stance, other foot's forward. Press into the ground, send you back. Watch out for any leaning. You want to keep your feet flat so you're not open and exposed, and your balance isn't compromised. Nice and straight. So arm comes up, protecting the body. This is both a defensive move and it's basically an Ikkyo position, right? It's a potential technique here. It's basically an Ikkyo position. And try not to use your arms separately, right? It's the weight shift, right? Not the arms doing it. Weight shift drives the arms forward and up. Weight shift back, draws the arms back and down. Good. Basic kamae, Hamino kamae is a ready stance. That comes from our weapons work, right? That's how we hold basic sword, seigon. The tip is up to the opponent's eyes. Seigon means eyes. And notice how the body's turned partially. Body's bladed rather than being exposed and frontal and very blocky. It's bladed. The tip is right up, pointing through the opponent's center line. So from my center line to the other center line, this is what informs our standing posture or each position. The fingertips are the tip of the sword, the blade of the sword, elbows forward. Light forward stance, so weighted slightly forward. We switch by bringing the back foot up, front foot back, and the switching of the feet is what switches the arms. So the arms are not doing this. The legs are moving the arms, or more experienced people, you can work on rotation around your vertical center line. As I rotate around my vertical center line, that just switches the mirror image, changes it to a mirror image. I'm just rotating around a very fine central axis. That also will keep you from bobbing up and down. Keep the hand blades energized. Keep the hips falling with gravity. Good. Now we're going to do a Tenkai. We pivot. Shift the weight back, turn on the heel, turn on the heel. Shift the weight back, turn on the heel, turn on the heel, and then into a slight forward stance. Slight forward stance. Slight forward stance. And so the arms only change because of the body turning. Hips falling straight down. Strong forward flow. Release the abdomen. Okay, let's come back here, especially for Senpai. What I'd like you to do is we'll come back here to what appears to be a stationary position. Here we are. It appears as if we're not moving. But as we're here, let's consciously bring in those two elements. Settling, opening. Bringing that quality and feeling into this supposed apparent stationary position. Now you might find that it might appear on the outside this is stationary, but inside there is a flow of energy. There's a vibrancy of energy. There's a settling and an opening. So this is not stationary at all. From the external, it might look like it, but it's a very alive current. And so maybe you can feel that the body is still vibrating. There's an alive current. If we were to talk about directional vectors, there would be the down or the settling and the opening. That's just as alive. That river, that current is just as alive and flowing as if we're physically moving. So see if you can feel that inside you have not stopped. Now let's add the Tenkai. Turn on one heel, turn on the other heel. And inside there's the rivers flowing, the currents are flowing, the settling, opening. Those currents are continually flowing. Now, come back to stationary again. From the outside, it may look like you're stationary, but see if you can feel that dynamic reality. You're still flowing, you're still moving. Now we'll bring this back into Minuchi. We did Minuchi earlier, but now we'll do it with the turn of the Tenkai. So it comes down, I turn on one heel, turn on the other heel. I'll move so my feet are more obvious. Turn on one heel, then the other heel. Are those shoulders neutral? Is the spine hanging vertically? Are the hips continuing to drop? Are your feet entering the ground? Are you settled and settling? Are you opening? And stop here with the arms out, Minuchi. Hang the hips. Physically, apparently stationary. See if you feel the currents, the river-like flow of energy in your body. Physically, you've stopped, but the energy has not stopped. The living current inside of you. Okay, good. So maybe we'll move on to 7th cue. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay. Let's go into strikes. I'm going to quickly review basic Shomen and maybe basic Yokomen and take it into 7th cue program. So we're back in the ready position. I'm going to do a couple without the arms to work with the body mechanics. I push off the back leg to turn my hip. I keep pushing off the back leg into the ground. That peels the foot off the ground. It forces the step, and then I settle into that step. Not into the foot, but into the front hip. If I settle into the foot, I'll probably be lurching forward. I'm open, I'm exposed, I'm compromised. So I sink down the hip, just like we sink down the hips when we do our arm swings. So I push off the back foot, that turns my hip, peels foot off, and the foot drops to sink down the hip. Pushing off that back foot, turning the hip, raises that back arm over the head. As my weight lands and sinks down the front hip, that makes the strike. So I want to finish at Chudon. Chudon is middle level. If I finish lower than that, I'm open and exposed. If I finish before that, I perhaps haven't cut through my target. I'll cut through the target, but not be overly exposed.
Sensei, I see Mike has his little yellow hand raised rather than unmuting. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt Sensei.
Oh, now I see it. Okay, go ahead.
I just have a question. Can we turn, because you said we have to turn on our heels, right? When we're Tenkaiing. How about, can we turn using the balls of the feet?
Okay, great question. Let's address that. So let's address that for a little while. That's a very valid question. You can turn on either the heel or the ball. So that would be the simple answer. Now, let me illustrate why often we turn on the heel. And you can try this with me. And some of you have done this with me before. But if we turn on the ball of the foot, it's going to be both feet, so the balls of the foot. We'll take a forward stance. Now, let's do a Tenkai, let's do a pivot, 180 degrees, and turn on the balls of the feet. Do that a couple times. Good. Now, do you find, maybe this will come across visually. Do you find that when you turn, I'm going to start this way so you can see me when I finish. You watch this. I turn on the balls of the feet. My legs are crossed. See if you don't find that. When you turn on the balls of your legs will have to be crossed when you turn. Your legs will have to be crossed when you turn if you're turning on the balls of the feet. So, do you notice that? If I turn on my balls of the feet, when I turn around, my feet are crossed. Now, that's okay if I have time to readjust. But you may not have time to readjust if you're dealing with multiple attackers. And of course, Aikido is always presuming multiple attackers, more than one attacker, attacks, interactions from all possible angles. So it's battlefield. Aikido comes from battlefield arts. So if I have to turn quickly and deal with something immediately behind me and my legs are crossed, I'm not very balanced or secure. I don't have a good foundation. If you turn on the heel, you're not as crossed, especially if you open that front foot a little bit past straight. They're straight, a little bit past straight. Now I have a base. One foot going this way, one foot going that way. I've got a good base. So that's why in Aikido, you often see the front foot is open. It's not just to the straight front. It's actually open a little further. So I have back foot going to one angle, front foot going the other angle, makes a better base. So experiment with that just another minute or so, where you turn around by turning on the ball, and notice if your legs are crossed, turn on the heel, then the other heel, and your legs are not crossed, or certainly not as crossed. If I turn on my heel, it's one foot in front of the other. But if I turn on the balls of the feet, my legs have crossed.
So, Sensei, I just have a follow-up question because
Yeah.
I usually use my balls of my feet, so I didn't find it's crossing. So is it okay if I use the balls, or should I switch to heels?
Well, that's good. So that's an important follow-up question. If you are able to turn on the balls of the feet and your feet are not crossed, you turn, that's totally fine. So my next statement was that you can do a combination. So normally I don't want to get too complicated. So usually I'll just say turn on the heels. But this is an opportunity, and this is why questions are always invited, because now we get to go into something detailed that we often don't, or we haven't before, or it's been a long time since we've addressed it. You can actually, what I often do and what people often do, it's a combination of ball of the foot and the heel. So it can either be the heel or the ball of the foot. So sometimes it can actually be a combination, a little bit on the heel, a little bit on the ball of the foot. What's important is that you're stable and you're not crossing. So it can be a coordination and combination between the heel and the ball of the foot. So one is not wrong. You can do either. I would say it's wrong only if it's making you compromised, for example, in that cross position. Then you have to find another coordination combination so that you're not crossed. So if you can do it, Mike and anyone else, on the balls of the feet, but when you do it, you are not crossed, it's totally fine. Now there's one little detail I'm gonna have Mike look at, and everybody else, if you're trying it on the balls of the feet. What I sometimes see, or what sometimes happens when people do the balls of the feet, let me show you. I'm gonna have to exaggerate this a little bit. I turn on the balls of my feet. You can tend to be a little hopping. So that's something that you will have to check if you're doing. So that looks totally fine, Mike. One of the things that can go awry with the heels, of course, turning on the heels. I'll face this way so it's more obvious. One of the challenges of turning on this is one of the downsides of turning on the heels, although this should be trained so this doesn't happen. But certainly in the beginning, people will tend to fall to their heels. They fall back a bit, especially if they're turning their feet at the same time. They'll tend to fall back towards their heels and their weight comes back. So that's the issue we need to look at when you turn on the heels. When you turn on the balls of the feet, the issue that you have to watch for is popping up and down, popping up and down. Okay. Again, continue to ask questions or comments, things that come up. There's one other aspect, Mike, that I want to mention.
Thank you, Sensei.
Yeah. There's one other thing I want to mention, that the heels can be a superior way. You probably can't check this out now, but when you're on a different ground surface, you can check this out. When you're on a sticky surface like asphalt or tarmac, asphalt that's really hot or warm, on a really hot day, you know how it gets a little sticky? If you're on any surface, or it could be actually even grass, where turning on the balls of your feet, you can get stuck. You can kind of twist your foot right out of your runner, right out of your shoe. If you can imagine, you're on sticky surface, whether it be really, really warm asphalt or really thick grass, really thick dry grass, and it can catch your foot. And turning on the ball of the foot, you can get stuck. Turning on the heel, you're free to move. So I can be literally on a gluey ground, really, really sticky, almost tar. I can turn on the heel. But turning on the ball of the foot, you can get stuck. So that's the other difference between turning on the heels or turning on the balls. So it's really good to explore these things and talk about these things and know these differences. So I'm glad that came up. Any comments or questions about this or anything else? So feel free to turn on the balls of the feet, but check that you're not bobbing up and down. Of course, check that you're not crossed. And also sometimes work on turning on the heel, even if you prefer turning on the ball of the foot. Also work turning on the heel, because if you're on a sticky surface, the ball of your feet will get glued into the ground. So you might have to turn on the heel as your only recourse. So you want to be able to do both. Now, a lot of times, if you really watch people, they're doing sometimes a combination of both. A little bit of a turn on the heel, maybe halfway, and the rest of the way on the ball. Or one foot's turning more on the heel, and the other foot turning more on the ball. That's okay too, as long as it's smooth and it's free. You're not getting stuck and you're not ending up crossed. So even a combination of that is fine. So it comes down to simply practicing a lot of Tenkai, a lot of movement, a lot of Tenkan too, a lot of practice, so your body gets free and smooth. And whether it's heel or ball or combination, the body just becomes natural with it. So the important thing is to practice it without those disadvantages happening. And then all of those are fine. Okay, so actually what I'm going to move into then is right into 7th Q technique with Kokyu Hoendo into Sayuendo, because that movement will really require us to do a lot of turning on the foot. So you can play with and experiment by turning on the ball or the heel. So this technique in 7th Q will really work the turning of the foot. So it looks like this. Kokyu Hoendo into Sayuendo. And we'll do 2 beats, the basic one, 2 beats. Remember, that's not lean, lean. It's think, think, turn, turn, think, not lean. So I have to turn on the, and actually this is a really good example of combination of heel and ball. So when I go from here into the next movement, it's a combination of turning on heel and ball. So I turn on my heel, I turn on the ball, the back foot, I turn on the ball, the front foot, I step back, I turn on the ball, I turn on the heel. I turn on the heel. I happen to be turning on the ball here, that can vary. I turn on the ball, I turn on the ball, I turn on the heel. So it's a combination. And that combination can change. So almost everybody, so if we have the new person, just follow along as best as you can. Every class we review almost all of these things. And this is more of an advanced move, so there's a lot involved with this. So Kokyu Hoendo, Sayuendo, Sayuendo. Kokyu Hoendo, Sayuendo, Sayuendo. Experienced people, senpai, keep your shoulders open, nice big shape. Not contractive, settling, and opening. This technique, this movement is also very good, very challenging for staying settled and open, because it's a lot of movement, a lot of changing of directions will tend to pull in and pull up. So go slow enough and deliberate enough, you can stay settling and opening, but mainly settling first. Kokyu Ho, turn, turn. Are you staying open or are you pulling in? Are you grounded and grounding or popping up and floating? Sink into your hips. Sink into your hips. That's better. Yes, that's better, Cheryl. Yeah, that's good, Mike. Tune in with your breathing. Let your breathing be big and full. Excellent. Okay. And then we have Minucci into Sayuendo. Okay, so I have Irimi Tenkan Minucci into Sayuendo. Irimi Tenkan into Minucci into Sayuendo. So I step, Minucci, come down, Tenkan, Sayuendo, Sayuendo. Minucci, coming down, Sayuendo, Sayuendo. So again, for the new person, I'm sorry I don't know your first name. Hopefully next time I'll know your first name. Again, these are more advanced movements. The first part of the class, we did more basic movements, wipeout movements, and then these are more advanced movements. So every class we go through different levels, different programs, spend a little bit of time on each program, depending on who's on the call. Whoever's on the call, we spend a little bit of time on their program. So just do your best, have fun with just following along, try to keep your breathing good, your posture really nice and straight, and then everything else is fine. That will improve as you go along. So two main things I would say: nice, good breathing, nice and straight with your body not leaning. Partially, it's not very good. You're open and exposed, off balance. So just working on nice, straight posture, knees nice and bent, so you're stable. Nice, good breathing. Okay, let's come to Misogi, breathing. So again, knees are bent a little bit, just like we were in Seiza, nice settling. And breathing in is reflection of the opening. Breathing out is reflecting the settling. So breathing in is the manifestation, expression of opening. Breathing out is the manifestation and expression of settling. Opening, spacious, opening, opening, breathing out, settling, settling, grounding, weight underside. Opening feeling, expansive feeling, breathing out, settling feeling, grounded feeling. It's a matter of mind, feeling, and intention. Opening, expanding, settling, grounding, coming to center. Okay, let's bow out.